Good morning. It's a beautiful Friday morning. Thank God it's Friday to some people, and Jumat Mubarak to our Muslim Ummah. Now, when I was coming on the road, a lot was actually going on. Aside the heat, that's that's on one side, but the queues have become more than usual, and I don't know why every time it has to be a whole federal capital territory that goes through fuel scarcity. Just this morning I was speaking with my brother, and he was telling me that in the east fuel is actually being sold for 350 naira and above, but it's available.
It's an amazing country we live in. The only thing we are not queuing up for right now is air.
That would have been something else.
Even if you show up in the restaurant, you have to queue to use the POS to make payments, then to come back to queue for food.
I don't want to say nothing seems to be working.
We need the Guinness Book of Records on the longest and widest queue.
Every time we come on air, we're always like, we hope things get better, get better. But then it seems to get better and then comes back worse. So at this point,
keep going around in a vicious cycle.
Exactly. At this point, let's just, take one step at a time. Let's just take life as it comes. That's just it.
Very true.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for joining us on Daybreak. I'm Darshan Husseina Osman.
And I am Sunday Michael Ogu. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
All right, now let's take a look at the highlights at this hour. Railway Corporation MD gives update on Lagos train accident.
And a 4-year-old boy's genital, tongue, eyes removed in Abuja.
ISWAP kills 35 IDPs fishing in Borno.
And now the details of our stories this morning. The Managing Director of Nigeria Railway Corporation, Mr. Fidet Okira, on Thursday explained what led to the accident involving a train and a bus in Lagos State earlier in the day. The NRC train was involved in an accident with the Lagos State government staff bus on the rail track in the Shogunle area of Lagos. Daily Trust reports that 3 bodies have so far been recovered from the scene, while several others are injured. Okira told News Agency of Nigeria in Lagos according to the information I gathered at the scene of the incident, many cars stopped when they got to the level crossing, while the Lagos State staff bus driver continued moving, which I don't know why. The managing director, who was concerned about the lives of the Lagos State staff, appealed to motorists to consider the level crossing at all times. Okira said when motorists get to the level crossing, they should not ignore the points where they should stop. The Director of Public Affairs and Enlightenment Department, Lagos State Traffic Management Authority, Mr. Taufik Adebayo, had said in a statement that the Lagos State government staff bus was crushed by a moving train at PWD Ikeja. Adebayo said that the staff bus was with registration number 04A 048LA. Said the enforcement officers of LASMA were the first emergency responders at the scene of the accident. Adebayo said they had called other emergency responders to join in the rescue. The accident recorded some casualty as the staff bus was fully loaded with government staffs going to the office in the morning.
Sad one there. Well, away from that story, the corpse of a 4-year-old boy, Eleazar Ishaya, has been found inside a manhole adjacent to Mr. Biggs at the Jabi area in Abuja 3 days after he was declared missing. Family sources say the boy was declared missing on Friday, March 3rd at Filimbal, Jabi, Laikibu, and his corpse was discovered 3 days after. Now, a witness, Joel Joseph, said when we saw his body inside the manhole, his grandmother attempted to jump inside, but someone took hold of her and pushed her away. Now, Joel Joseph actually said he jumped inside the pit where he found the body already rotten, and his tongue, genitalia were cut off, while his eyes were also plucked out. Now, the victim, who was described by his mother as smart, was a Nursery 1 pupil and was the only child of the family. The mother said on that fateful Friday, Eleazar was about to be bathed, but then he took a 10 naira note to buy sweets from a neighborhood shop and then went missing. She said she's not disturbed by his death, rather how horribly he was tortured to death. She rests her case with God, and she doesn't know the perpetrators because she's not a spiritually eyed being, and the boy's blood can infiltrate the heartless killers because he's innocent. Now, no immediate response from the FCT Police Command on the incident.
That unfortunate incident and how dangerous it's becoming for young ones to live in our society. And moving on, no fewer than 35 displaced persons who went on fishing expedition have been shot dead by the fighters of Islamic States of West Africa, ISWAP. The fighters were shot dead, the residents were shot dead in Ngala, local government area of Borno State. Daily Trust gathered from sources that the ISWAP fighters had on several occasions warned the fishermen to stay away from their zones before they unleashed terror on them on Wednesday. A local who escaped from the attack said the terrorists surrounded the fishermen near the riverbank and opened fire on them, killing at least 35 persons while many others were missing. The survivor told our correspondent that the incident occurred at Modolo under Ngala local government area bordering Dikwa village, adding that unfortunately all the victims were IDPs from Dikwa town. Corroborating the account, Zagazola Makama, a counterinsurgency expert and security analyst in the Lake Chad region, said dozens of the terrorists riding on motorcycles stormed the field and began shooting sporadically. He said 9 among the victims managed to flee, with 3 of them sustaining bullet wounds.
All right, with that, we're done with the highlights at this hour, and most of the stories actually seem to be sad ones. But then we'll move on to more stories. Residents of Makurdi, the Benue State capital, say they are disappointed with the postponement of the governorship and State House of Assembly elections. Now, the residents who said they were fully ready for the exercise were, however, greeted with the news of the shift by 1 week from the Independent National Electoral Commission to March 18. Jimmy Adzande gives us a reaction in this report.
Benue residents who had looked forward to the post wanted an end to the suspicion and anxiety raised by the keen contest in the state. They spoke on the preparedness of some political parties and agreed that although the postponement is solely to consolidate INEC's preparations, it may however benefit other political parties.
Waking up this morning to understand that INEC has shifted the election to next Saturday on the 18th. In fact, we were disappointed. But of course, we don't have any choice than to wait for the day they have scheduled the election coming Saturday next week on the 18th. It will affect some political parties because I understand that from yesterday, in fact, a few days back, a lot of people we are giving out money, mobilizing people, trying to buy some voters. But of course, now that the election has been shifted, they will have to go back to their work, to their drawing table, to do what they were doing. So to some extent, it has affected some political parties, especially those that were ready to use money to buy votes.
On the flip side, some residents feel the postponement might dampen the spirit of many eligible voters who had looked forward to casting their votes this Saturday and lead to voter apathy in the state.
When I heard the announcement, I was somehow disappointed. But when I have a second thought about it, the election is all about Nigeria. It's not about political parties. And I look at it that the INEC want to do something that will favor everybody, all the political parties in Nigeria. And that is why they decide to honor the courts and then shift the election for the interest of Nigeria, not for a political party. And then all Nigerians should come up and then be patient and vote for the day the election is already rearranged to take place next Saturday.
Another category of Benue residents said the postponement has altered their calendar of activities as the shift has kept many social and economic activities on the wait.
If not this election we have faced so many things, just especially the school. Some schools are down days because of these elections. Now, INEC shifting it again, it will affect the academic of the school. So, I feel bad. They would have conducted this election and allowed the students to go at least do the remaining 3 weeks for our vacate. But shifting it, I see no any good reason at all of shifting it.
Either way, the electors will have to exercise patience with the process. For politicians, it is time to tighten loose ends for possible victory.
The situation is not any different in the Federal Capital Territory, where residents have expressed mixed reactions over the postponement of the governorship and state assembly election less than 72 hours to the scheduled polls. Noel Sampson speaks to Abuja resident concerning the postponement.
As soon as the Court of Appeal gave its nod to INEC to reconfigure the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS on Wednesday evening, the Commission announced change of date for the governorship and state assembly election from March 11th to March 18th. The decision to postpone the election elicited diverse reactions from Abuja residents.
It's a good move because the election is fraught with a lot of controversies. So in order to resolve those controversies, it is best that things are done normally for the benefit of doubt. Because INEC wanted to reconfigure and the aggrieved parties actually did not want that move because they felt that, or they feel that the election results in the INEC data will be tampered with. So I think for the benefit of doubt, INEC postponing it and giving every party a level ground to douse all doubts is very much in place.
They took a rightful decision in order to, ameliorate and put in place on the issues of presidential election on the BVAS. So they have to give the governorship election time in order not to muddle things together.
However, some say the postponement shows that the Independent National Electoral Commission is not ready in the first place.
Now you are prepared to go and vote. Why would somebody now postpone it if the person does not have a negative intention? If you have a good intention for Nigerians, you should have allowed them to vote on that day. Why postponing it? There is no need of postponing it. So I see that they are trying to do one or two things which I don't know what they are up to. But let's watch and see. What matters is let's do the right thing, let's vote. We shouldn't relax. We will still come out to vote as we did in presidential election as well.
I feel that the INEC are actually not yet ready for the people of Nigeria for the next election. That's the reason for the postponement. But it also has a side effect towards other people, and majorly students that they had shut down their schooling for a very long time. This will affect so many people's plan. And just in general, what we just want as Nigerians is that the elections should go peacefully, and then the BVAS and every other thing that INEC has failed in the presidential, they should try and correct for the next election.
I have already seen failure on it. Okay? For the government to postpone this governorship election, I've seen a bias on it already.
Many Nigerians said they will wait until the new date to do the needful so that credible leaders will emerge from a free, fair and credible elections. Noel Sampson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Well, moving on to more stories. Postponement of governorship and state assembly elections across the country by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, sent mouth wagging in Kano as people express divergent views. Now, while some believe that it is the right thing to do, others argue that it will make no difference as it will prolong the current economic hardship. Trust TV correspondent Idris Jibril reports.
Following the postponement of the election to March the 18th, some politicians say it is the right move considering the alleged irregularities identified during the just concluded presidential and National Assembly election.
There is no reason for INEC to be failing in terms of logistics operations. That's one. Secondly, there is also issue with the IREF. One of the reasons why I decided to contest for election is because of the confidence I have in the electoral process. I was given so much assurance by INEC and also by the presidency that the election will be free and fair and will not have issues. But then, one of the most important key component of the electoral process is that IREF, and we have seen how it has failed, on the day that is supposed to be optimal.
According to some voters in Kano, the postponement of the gubernatorial election will only add more pressure on the electorate, who would have wanted to finish voting once and for all. I think INEC should have allowed this election to just go ahead because we want to finish it once and for all. People are suffering. We just want to finish this election so that we know that we are over it. But while the Independent National Electoral Commission say the election is postponed to enable the commission reconfigure VIVA machines, these members of the Transition Monitoring Group in Kano are out on the streets to demand for peaceful election come March the 18th.
We have witnessed what happens during the presidential election. The killings, the destruction of properties are live. So we are anticipating the same thing to happen during the gubernatorial election. Politicians are making arrangements to disrupt the setting and the situation in the election, so that we organize this campaign rally to tell the world that we don't want violation of rules and regulation.
At the moment, the Independent National Electoral Commission in Kano, like in many other parts of the country, have continued to assure voters that the election will be free, fair, credible and violence-free, and that voters should feel free to come out to exercise their civic responsibility on 18th March. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
And away from the postponement of the elections by INEC, as the Naira crunch bites harder, traders are now exploring other options to receive payments from their customers. One of such options is to use POS agents, who in turn charge a fee for the transaction. But pressures on internet infrastructure has increased the rate of failed transactions. Zainab Karai brings us the report.
As the Naira scarcity persists, traders and customers have been forced to resort to POS transactions between buyers and sellers. However, cases of failed online transactions that are caused by traffic and ineffective internet services have made customers reluctant to use e-transfers as a payment option. Though many lauded the cashless policy targets of the Apex Bank, the infrastructure placed to make this possible has been questionable.
One of the customers that came to the shop this morning, I am the one that gave him 100 naira to pay for the space where he parked his car. And he did not buy the goods again because he was trying to make the transaction and it was not going. The one I saw there before yesterday, the one I saw yesterday, even the one that they debited me, and I did not get the money.
I have transferred almost 3 people now that the money did not go. And those people now, is their customers. They have gone. It will show paid, transaction okay, but money is not in my account. I went to the bank to complain now. They say it's 10 days for me to see my money.
People who do say Gary, say like all this village stuff, they don't listen to you when you talk about transfer. They want to see cash in their hand. You pay, you go.
According to traders in the market, the cashless policy has affected their daily patronage and by implication, their income.
Look at the market now. We cannot see people in the market. Everywhere is just door. People are not entering the market. There's no cash. No cash in the market. No cash to enter market. Somebody buys something, the person cannot go with what he or she has bought. Because without us getting the transfer, we cannot release our goods.
POS will collect 300, 400, 200 for just 1,000 naira. Some of the POS. So how much are we making in a day? Our business is not even moving.
To even withdraw and deposit sometimes is very, very difficult. The network is bad. Most of the bank, you tried more than 3 times, they will debit the person. There's no way you can even, and for them to even get access to the bank, again, at least there's another problem there again.
Though the Supreme Court has ruled that the old 1,000, 500 and 200 naira notes will remain legal tender till December 31st, 2023. Nigerians are yet to get any form of relief as they await the go-ahead from the Central Bank and President Buhari for the full implementation of the Supreme Court's directive. Zainab Karai, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, well, with that, I think we're done with stories and packages. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it'll be time for the newspaper review on Daybreak on Trust TV.
That's correct.
situation where you find that
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. It's now time for the newspaper review. Let's take a look at what the front pages of the national dailies are saying. Let's begin with Daily Trust newspaper, and we have the lead story here that talks about Boko Haram kills 35 fishermen in Borno, and writers here says terrorists tie them in net, spray them with bullets, says locals. We're sad, Dikwa Emir. Government in talks with security operatives, says Zulum, and you can find details of that story on page 4. But then there's also a pictorial of the Shehu of Dikwa, Haji Ibrahim ibn Umar Ibrahim El-Kanemi, during a condolence visit to families of fishermen killed by Boko Haram in Borno State. Let's move on to more stories from the top of the page. Nigeria records 1.2 trillion naira surplus as foreign trade hits 52.38 trillion naira in 2022. We also have election postponement, voters, parties express mixed reactions. We also have a Shippers Council, FAN, others call low on ease of doing business compliance. Now, from the bottom of the page there, we have 6 killed, scores injured as train crushes BRT in Lagos. Buhari, Gbajabiamila, Sanwo-Olu mourn, and train passengers worried over rising accidents. We also have federal government begins probe. You can find details of that story on page 5. More stories. INEC kicks as court okays to use temporary voter card for voting. IWD, that's International Women's Day. Jaiz Bank to establish all-women wing. Details on page 21. And we have Kogi boy trying to arrest thieves on yam farm hacked to death. A really sad one there. And these are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
Moving on to the Nation newspaper this morning, it's leading with the headline, Tinubu's pledge to Nigerians, I will not disappoint you. My certificate of return is a World Cup trophy, President-elect says in Lagos. You'll find the President-elect there with various Orbas, as they are known in Lagos, in a photo shoot alongside the governor of Lagos. Nigeria's debt hit 50 trillion. And to other stories, parties realign ahead of Saturday's polls. Obey Supreme Court judgment on Naira now, legal giants tell Buhari. And PDP leaders to picket INEC office over polls result. Rainstorms destroy 105 houses in Ekiti. And to other stories there, Masha becomes US-based G24 director. And farmers unite for APC governors. These are the major stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
All right, let's take a look at Blueprint newspaper. We have the lead story here that says controversies over February 25 polls. Buhari opens up, says there won't be another June 12. And we also have writers here that says assures Tinubu will be sworn in May 29. Protect integrity of data from beavers, APC tells INEC. And you can find details of that story on page 6. From top of the page there we have Lagos train BRT crash, death toll rises to 6. Sanwo-Olu suspends campaign. Declares 3 days mourning. Tinubu, Gbajabiamila, Jando mourn. Driver of ill-fitted BRT in our custody, says police. On page 9, we have NSCDC arraigns man for defrauding sex worker in Ondo State. And 10th NAS, group favors North Central for president of Senate. We have more stories on the bottom of the page there. Women play crucial roles in Dangote Group's success story. Dangote's daughter. March 18. We haven't seen court judgment allowing use of TVC's INEC. And then we have Kanu to sack lawyer over poor representation. Orders IPOP to stop media attacks. And these are some of the stories on Blueprint newspaper.
Okay, moving on to the Nigerian Tribune, leading with the incidents from Lagos. 6 died, 70 injured in train. Lagos government staff bus coalition. Sanwo-Olu declares 3 days mourning, calls for blood donation. Driver undergoes psychiatric drug test, remanded in custody. We warned driver before he crossed the rail line, victims narrate Ovil. And FJ calls for investigation. Buhari, Tinubu, Gbajabiamila, governors mourn. You'll find the details of this on page 4 and 5. Of course, you also have pictures there of the various scenes of the incidents yesterday in Lagos and the visit of the governor as well as the hospital ward where most of the victims were hospitalized. 10 die in Oyo Ogbomosho Road accident. And court orders INEC to allow 2 voters to use temporary voters card in March 18 polls. Nadeco has no branch in the US, Okpadoku. attacks Tinubu on ensuring federal constitutional governance. And 1 killed, 15 injured as APC-PDP supporters clash in Bauchi. These are the major stories on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
All right, let's take a look at Punch next. The lead story talks about the Lagos train bus crash, and then let's move on to more stories. At the top of the page there, INEC folds judgment permitting temporary voter cards for polls. We have NCAA probes Lufthansa over alleged passengers maltreatment. Visa revocation, court bars CEO from running Seplat. And beside the nameplate there, on roadblock, victims tackle lawless soldiers over extortion and harassment. And these are some of the stories on the Punch.
Moving on to The Guardian this morning. Polls shift may cost Nigeria more than $2.23 billion suffered in 2019. Postponement compounds Naira fuel scarcity woes, SBM intelligence presidency. Why Buhari is quiet over allegation of irregularities against INEC. March 18 polls, excuses no longer acceptable. IPAC cautions INEC. Buri, INEC has eroded our confidence. Protect integrity of data from beavers, APC tells INEC. And INEC kicks as court orders commission to allow 2 Nigerians vote without PVC. And of course, you also have the photos from yesterday's unfortunate incidents involving the train and the metro bus on the front page there. To other stories, Black Thursday, 21 die in road crash in Lagos, Enugu. And pilot's training fee hits 20 million as NCAT, ICA increases tuition. And governorship election and lessons of the postponement. That's an editorial, and you'll find that on page 12. And there's a strip down there below the pictures. 1 week after Supreme Court ruling, CBN silence stokes confusion. That you'll find on page 6. These are the major stories on the front page of The Guardian.
All right, let's take a look at Business Day newspaper. INEC's flop spurs tech industry into action. We also have cash crunch, fuel scarcity bites harder in Abuja. Currency risk dulls investor interest in Nigeria's energy transition plan. Pricey kidney care leaves poor Nigerians in a fix. And we also have Nigerians' oil output hits 13-month high of 1.3 million barrels per day. And these are some of the stories on Business Day.
And to a last paper here on display would be First News newspaper. It stays with Tinubu's victory. Tinubu's victory, sacrosanct. Presidency tells PDP, LP, others. Again, advises aggrieved opposition parties to go to court. Rules out annulment of election results. Says Buhari refused to react to INEC criticism by wishful thinkers. And to other stories, Tinubu sympathizes with Ikeja train crash victims. Dogara endorses PDP's Sadiq Abubakar for Bauchi's Guba pool. And how troop foiled terrorist thugs attempt to disrupt polls and defense headquarters. And court remands ex-Imo deputy governor in prison. To other stories, governorship polls, court ordered INEC to allow use of temporary voters card. Appeal court reserves judgment in PDP's case against Tinubu, Shetima, APC. And federal government orders the investigation bureau to probe train crash. These are some of the major stories on the front page of First News newspaper.
All right, well, with that, we're done reading out the stories on the front page of the dailies, national dailies, and we have our guest in the studio, Nuruddin Abdullah. He's the editor of 21st Century Chronicles, and he's actually here with us to analyze some of these stories. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, thank you.
For always joining us. We appreciate your time. All right, so, let's begin on a sad note, talking about the lead story on Daily Trust newspaper that talks about Boko Haram killing 35 fishermen in Borno State. And locals actually said they tied them in their own fishing nets and then, sprayed them with bullets. Really sad one.
It's really tragic. Tragic in the sense that, excuse me, it has been long since we had such sad stories, particularly with the apparent degradation of the terrorists. But stories like these, means a lot need to be done, particularly on the incidents. If you put this side by side with what happened in Niger Republic not long ago, some of their soldiers were captured and brutally murdered, and the terrorists even shared footages. So it means that there are still some elements of Boko Haram Israel along the Chad basin, and the security agencies need to really galvanize troops and maybe finish this job once and for all, because 35 is a very big number. It's been long since we have something like this again. I can understand the troops, the DSQ is deploying troops to the other side of the country, particularly the northwest and part of the north central because of the banditry. And if you take this and see what happened in Kaduna yesterday, in Niger the day before yesterday, it means that something really needs to be done, and very quickly. Because you see what happened in Niger, about 50 abducted. This is one of the largest number in the last couple of months. In Kaduna, a community was attacked, remember. So there are some pockets of the bandits are regrouping and launching attacks, and the Boko Haram as well. We thought that their capabilities were totally degraded, but now, they have this capability to launch this attack on soft target, like these people are IDPs, for heaven's sake. IDPs, fishing, They have already been traumatized, sent out of their villages and towns for years, and now still. So it's a very serious matter, and I hope the appropriate authorities will take appropriate action so that this thing will not be a recurring decimal again.
People would say that, which is a positive comment, by the way, that the Borno State government had done well to have returned these people to their abode. But with attacks like this, one begin to question whether it was the right time, to have taken them back, given that, like you said, there are still leftovers of these people, especially around the Lake Chad basin. That's on the one hand. On the second, you talked about wiping this off. Some part of the Lake Chad extends beyond the Nigerian shore. Isn't it enough, time that we also see an how would I call it, a regional arrangement, sort of with the Lake Chad and even the Niger Republic, because the last time we had a major onslaught around the place was with the late Chadian president leading the troop in an affront against these people. What do we need to do to properly, because if you must relocate them, these people for centuries have always had their major livelihood around fishing. Somehow they will still have to get back to the same place if they must survive. What can we do really in this regard?
I think relocating them is not just enough. And you remember some years back, particularly when the Chadians came, they were clearing Boko Haram, but they can't hold fort on those territories. And unfortunately, by the time they move, Boko Haram will return, because the police, actually when a territory is cleared of the terrorists, there should be semblance of authorities around that area. But in our own case, there is almost zero presence of such people. So if you return Boko Haram and IDPs to Mafa, for instance, Kala Balgi or what have you, and Gamborongala, and there are no security agencies there, you are still exposing them, because these terrorists can still come back and inflict mortal damage, like they did here, and flee. That is one. So I think maybe apart from rebuilding their burned, deserted villages and towns, maybe the Borno State government has to equally look at the idea of security. I know before they relocate them back, they have to get security guarantees from the appropriate authorities. That's for sure. So I think maybe they have to up the ante in that regard. And on the second leg of your question, here we do have. There is a multinational joint task force headquartered in Jamina, in Chad, you understand. We are Nigeria, Cameroon, and Chad. We come troops. Most of the commanders are even from Nigeria. So I think maybe there is need to, maybe our security forces have slacked down, thinking that maybe with the infighting between ISWAP factions and Boko Haram, like we had last week, the security agencies are telling us that hundreds of Boko Harams were slaughtered by their hitherto comrades, the ISWAP terrorists. So I think it's a good opportunity to utilize the infighting among the terrorists and finish them up. Else, things like this will continue to happen, even though we don't pray for it.
All right, now still talking about, deaths, the 6 that were killed and scores injured, even as the train crashes BRT in Lagos. It seems like a reoccurrence, with what actually happened in Abuja. But in this case, this particular driver had so many people in his car, and even after he knew that the train was closed, he still thought he could beat, the train. And look at how it ended.
I think 2 issues are fundamental to the story here. One, you have to know the mental health of the people you employ as drivers. That is one. It's very fundamental.
Very important.
Because from the stories, they said that the driver was being stopped, but he thought, so, he preferred speed rather than safety. You understand? The place was barricaded, but he still think it's a moving train. If he's alone, it's understandable. Maybe you want to commit suicide, whatever. But with people inside, not a salon, but a BRT bus. You understand? And look at what even some of the survivors were saying. They were telling him to stop. So fundamentally, all state governments, even the federal government, they have to be subjecting their drivers to mental health checks periodically. Are they into drugs? Because as a driver, the only thing is about safety. But when you throw away safety measures and accept in speed and whatever, if you want to go there early, go starting time. You understand?
You have been in Lagos. It's like a second or a third home for you for a lot of things. We've seen how reckless these public transport drivers can be. And you said something that was instructive. We remember when they were introducing these buses, the government were busy promising the reckless drivers that we want to stop you so that we can give you better cars. If it is just about moving people from the smaller reckless vehicles they were using into bigger ones and entrusting more lives into their care, then something is fundamentally wrong with that recruitment process. Bus driving across other parts of the world are noble jobs. They are not for every term they can hurry. What can we do to clean that space? Because this is becoming a recurring decimal.
I think we neglect it. We have, even at our family levels, we don't do background check because we pay them pittance. Not even talk of mental health. You employ a driver that will come and be teaching your teenage kids how to smoke. You don't even know because he's always with them. So attention, particularly the Lagos state government, attention must be paid to that sector. You remember the case, there are some BRT drivers that are now being prosecuted for assault and sexually assaulting allegedly assaulting their passengers.
Yes.
So it means that a lot is wrong with the recruitment process. The right people are not being recruited. You understand? It's a public service. So enough care should be taken. But unfortunately, like you said now, the agberos, to use that word, that have been doing the motorway are now giving BRT. So you are transferring the problem and subjecting the lives of people into serious danger. Look at what happened yesterday. He must have been under the influence of something.
Possibly.
You understand? They were telling him, stop, stop. No, he did not. So I think maybe state governments, particularly Lagos, should take into consideration the types of drivers they have, particularly for this BRT, and even the licensing process. The licensing process has been abused seriously across the country. Is it the road safety that's given the driver's license or the VIO? That confusion is still there. So I think maybe if we get that act correct and right, maybe we can minimally, drastically reduce some of these ugly incidents.
And without, just before Senna takes this story, the same thing has to happen to the truck drivers.
Yeah.
We are beginning to see, you know, they don't pay attention to traffic stops. They don't even see other road users as road users, especially if it's a smaller vehicle versus they practically will want to squeeze you against the barricades. And when you succeed in going past them and look through your window to see the kind of people driving, you see kids of somewhere between 18 and 25 handed those kind of responsibility, carrying highly flammable contents, driving recklessly on our road. And sometimes you even get the impression that these people are bigger than the law, because once the traffic wardens attempt to even stop them, they use the same vehicle to barricade the road and cause serious commotion on the road. Sometimes it feels like our government has completely given up on those set of people.
Yes, because I think it's a two-way problem. They have leadership. The appropriate authorities should engage with the leadership of these drivers. They can be trailers, they can be tanker drivers, and even tipper drivers inside the metropolis. They can badge your car. If you are lucky, you catch him. If not, that's the end. You understand? So I think enough needs to be done. They have leadership. If they are too reckless, for instance, I don't see any why state government cannot ban them. Maybe from the cities for some hours and what have you. But unfortunately, like other sectors, you know, the laws are not being respected. That's why there are loopholes. With small amount of money they can get, they can go off the hook. You know, so it's actually a series of issues that we have to look into and begin to amend them to gradually, so that we know we can reduce the madness on the highways.
All right, well, just before we move on to other stories, since we're still talking about, you know, crime and all that, let's take a look at the City and Crime page on Daily Trust newspaper. We have some very interesting stories here. We have woman sues hubby for denying her conjugal rights, says marriage not only about food. We also have a pictorial of some PVCs, ballot papers and other items recovered by soldiers from a private apartment at Olodi area of Lagos. Now, politicians collected our account numbers without paying. Niger voters cry out. We have a man approaches court, says the wife abandoned him for 12 years. Soldiers raid kidnappers, then rescue commissioner in Cross Rivers. So many stories here. We have court grants nursing mother and brother bail over stolen phone. We also have FCTA distributes gadgets to security agencies. I never intended killing my girlfriend, Chinese tells court. This is the kind of story. And I will just take one more. Kogi boy trying to arrest thieves on yam farm hacked to death. And these are some of the stories on City and Crime page. If you want to have, have details of more of these stories, you can actually grab a copy of Daily Trust newspaper. So, Mr. Nuruddin.
So the last story you mentioned, they're very tragic, you know.
Exactly.
The boy wants to protect their hard work. So maybe months of hard work now. And the accident gruesomely murdered him. So unfortunate. And I hope they will be arrested and subjected to the full wrath of the law. You know, there are so many court cases. This one is talking about the woman is saying marriage is not all about food.
And she's true. She's saying
she's right. Marriage is not all about food. The other one is complaining that the woman has abandoned him for 12 years. It simply means that she's no longer interested in the marriage. Not by force.
Man shall not live by bread alone. Yeah.
And the Niger story is more, it looks more interesting.
Yeah, they collected the account numbers.
The bribe was
it was incomplete transaction. As the banks would say. As the banks would say. I think the delay in the completion is now raising tension.
Yes, you know, it's so unfortunate. So, despite the cash crunch, you know, some unscrupulous politicians are using the other way to cheat, and
maybe they will tell them it's the bank, it's not me. The money has moved from my account, but it's again.
But one of my friends said that majority of people that can be hoodwinked into this are the women. Is it true?
I seriously
so because all this spaghetti,
but they cook it for the men who don't ask where it is coming from before they eat it.
Exactly.
So when you give one, the others will go back. They are sharing this 2 pack of spaghetti.
And 200.
Not even a full wrapper. Wrapper has 6 pieces, right? In some places, in Kaduna and Kano, they share it into 2, some 3. In Hausa, we call it palebu. And you know, it's most unfortunate. I think maybe it's a factor of illiteracy and poverty.
Unfortunately.
That people will just shortchange. They will deliberately allow themselves to be shortchanged. 2 spaghetti. You can't, if you are a family of 4, for instance, that's a meal for just 2.
Just a lunch.
Just a lunch.
Without fish and Maggi.
You understand? And that wrapper is 1/4. They are sharing the most substandard, you know, that maybe if you watch it, if you dip it inside water, you won't even recognize it. And not even the full
length.
So it's most unfortunate. I hope that the Electoral Act election violators or whatever will take its course, particularly this time around. You know, with their cash crunch, because you can't give money, now you are even anticipatory bribe or giving spaghetti or noodles or. It's most unfortunate.
I think what's important to note behind the drama and everything is the fact that vote buying is a crime. If you are arrested, you can be jailed for it. It would not matter whether it's a pack of spaghetti or it's a standard material that was given to you. Those who didn't get it are still alive.
And more importantly, the giver and the taker. I think I should be culpable. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer.
Absolutely.
If you are giving a pack of spaghetti.
Maybe that was why the transaction was truncated, so that the evidence will not be available to indict them. But it is what it is. We want to thank you, Nuruddin Abdallah, for making it to the studio today. We hope we were able to brighten your day in the face of the postponement. Everybody wanted this election to come and go so that we can get our lives back. But the nation is ours. We continue to endure until next Saturday, hopefully. Thank you very much for making it to the studio. And that's the much we'll take with newspaper reviews this morning. We'll take a quick breather. See you at the top of the hour.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and I am Sunday Michael Ogun.
And I'm Darshan Husseina Usman. Thanks for staying with us.
And we move straight to the headlines on the court sends ex-Imo deputy governor to prison.
1 killed, 14 injured as APC-PDP clash in Bauchi.
Soludo, I liberated 8 Anambra local government under the control of criminals.
Now let's take a look at some of the details of these stories. A former deputy governor of Imo State, Gerald Irona, has been remanded in Owerri Correctional Center by a magistrate's court. Irona was arrested by the police on Wednesday for offenses bordering on felony. Now the presiding magistrate, C.N. Ezerioha, after hearing the prosecution counsel and defense counsel, ordered that Irona be remanded in Owerri Correctional Center, citing lack of jurisdiction to hear the matter. Now, counsel to the ex-deputy governor in Imo State had moved a motion that Irona be granted bail on self-recognition, and Imo said if the ex-deputy governor could not be granted bail on self-recognition, a state lawmaker, Frank Ugboma, representing Oguta State constituency, was willing to take him on bail. But the lead prosecutor, Sunday Ogbuji, opposed the bail application, saying that the magistrate lacked the jurisdiction to hear the matter. Now, also, the lead prosecutor said one of the charges preferred on the ex-deputy governor was a felony. Ogbuji said that only a judge of high court could grant Irona bail. The magistrate agreed with the prosecution counsel that she lacked the jurisdiction to entertain the matter or grant the accused bail, and then the magistrate also ordered that the case file be transferred to the State Department of Public Prosecutions.
Moving on, barely less than 24 hours after signing of the peace accord by governorship candidates in Bauchi State, 1 person has been confirmed dead and 14 others injured in a violent clash between supporters of the ruling People's Democratic Party and the opposition All Progressive Congress during the APC gubernatorial campaign rally in Duguri, the hometown of Governor Bala Mohammed. Bauchi State Police Public Relations Officer SP Ahmed Wakil, who confirmed the incident to Daily Trust in a telephone interview, said that one Mohammed Abdullahi has been confirmed dead and the General Hospital Al-Kaleri, while 14 others are injured. Wakil explained that the Commissioner of Police directed the Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of Criminal Investigation Department to commence a discreet investigation, adding that IPOs were presently on ground investigating the root cause of the matter. He noted that the CP condemned the incident in its totality and assured the people of the district that justice will be served for each and every one of them. In a statement signed by Salisu A. Barrow, the Director of Media and Publicity of the APC, it was alleged that the PDP took open fire on their governorship campaign entourage in Duguri. Barrow explained that eyewitnesses' accounts said they had sounds of sporadic shooting around the premises where the campaign rally was held, which made security operatives at the venue rush to the scene of the shooting in an attempt to disarm the thugs and retrieve guns from them, shot 3 people.
All right, away from that story, Governor Charles Soludo of Anambra State has said he liberated 8 local government councils under the control of criminals. Soludo, who assumed office last year, said the efforts of his administration in fighting insecurity have yielded positive results. In a statement issued by his Chief Press Secretary, Christian Aburime, the governor said the secure environment was responsible for the peace that prevailed during and after the February 25th presidential and National Assembly elections in Anambra. Now, the governor said the secure environment created by his government was what allowed Anambra residents to come out in their numbers and confidently participate in the presidential election in the state. Soludo therefore called on Anambra people to support his government by voting candidates of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, in the March 18 House of Assembly election, and he predicted openly that Obi will win Anambra, adding that the governor did not do anything to thwart the wishes of Anambra people during the election.
Interesting how Obi is still making the rounds and issues away from his elections. Residents of Makurdi, the Benue State capital, say they are disappointed with the postponement of the governorship and State House of Assembly elections. The residents who said they were fully ready for the exercise were, however, greeted with the news of the shift by 1 week from the Independent National Electoral Commission to March 18th. Jimmy Azande brings us their reaction in this report.
Benue residents who had looked forward to the post wanted an end to the suspicion and anxiety raised by the keen contest in the state. They spoke on the preparedness of some political parties and agreed that although the postponement is solely to consolidate INEC's preparations, it may however benefit other political parties.
Waking up this morning to understand that INEC has shifted the election to next Saturday on the 18th, in fact, we were disappointed. But of course, we don't have any choice than to wait for the day they have scheduled the election coming Saturday next week on the 18th. It will affect some political parties because I understand that from yesterday, in fact a few days back, a lot of people were giving out money, mobilizing people, trying to buy some voters. But of course, now that the election has been shifted, they will have to go back to their work, to their drawing table to still do what they were doing. So to some extent, it has affected some political parties, especially those that were ready to use money to buy votes.
On the flip side, some residents feel the postponement might dampen the spirit of many legitimate voters who had looked forward to casting their votes this Saturday and lead to voter apathy in the state.
When I heard the announcement, I was somehow disappointed. But when I have a second thought about it, the election is all about Nigeria. It's not about political parties. And I look at it as the INEC want to do something that will favor everybody, all the political parties in Nigeria. And that is why they decide to honor the courts and then shift the election for the interests of Nigeria, not for a political party. And then all Nigerians should come out and then be patient and vote for the day the election is already rearranged to take place next Saturday.
Another category of Benue residents said the postponement has altered their calendar of activities as the shift has kept many social and economic activities on the wait.
If not this election, we have faced so many things, just especially the school.
Some schools are down based because of these elections. Now, I'm shifting it again. It will affect the academic of the school. So, I feel bad. They would have conducted this election and allow the student to go at least do the remaining 3 weeks for our vacate. But shifting it, I see no any good reason at all of shifting it.
Either way, the lecturers will have to exercise patience with the process. For politicians, it is time to tighten loose ends for possible victory.
Mixed reactions trailed decision of the Independent National Electoral Commission to postpone governorship and states assembly elections less than 72 hours to the scheduled polls. Now, Noel Sampson speaks to Abuja residents concerning the postponement.
As soon as the Court of Appeal gave its nod to INEC to reconfigure the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS on Wednesday evening, the Commission announced change of date for the governorship and state assembly election from March 11th to March 18th. The decision to postpone the election elicited diverse reactions from Abuja residents.
It's a good move because the election is fraught with a lot of controversies. So in order to resolve those controversies, it is best that things are done normally for the benefit of doubt. Because INEC wanted to reconfigure and the aggrieved parties actually did not want that move because they felt that, or they feel that the election results in the INEC data will be tampered with. So I think for the benefit of doubt, INEC postponing it and giving every party a level ground to douse all doubts is very much in place.
They took a rightful decision in order to, ameliorate and put in place on the issues of presidential election on the BVAS. So they have to give the governorship election time in order not to muddle things together.
However, some say the postponement shows that the Independent National Electoral Commission is not ready in the first place.
Now you are prepared to go and vote. Why would somebody now postpone it if the person does not have a negative intention? If you have a good intention for Nigerians, you should have allowed them to vote on that day. Why postponing it? There is no need of postponing it. So I see that they are trying to do one or two things, which I don't know what they are up to. But let's watch and see. What matters is let's do the right thing, let's vote. We shouldn't relax. We will still come out to vote as we did in presidential election as well.
I feel that the INEC are actually not yet ready for the people of Nigeria for the next election. That's the reason for the postponement. But it also has a side effect towards other people, and majorly students that they had shut down their schooling for a very long time. This will affect so many people's plan. And just in general, what we just want as Nigerians is that the elections should go peacefully, and then the BVAS and every other thing that INEC has failed in the presidential, they should try and correct for the next election.
I have already seen failure on it. Okay? For the government to postpone this governorship election, I've seen a bias on it already.
Many Nigerians said they will wait until the new date to do the needful so that credible leaders will emerge from a free, fair and credible elections. Noel Sampson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
The postponement has also sent mouth wagging in Kano as people express divergent views. While some believe that it is the right thing to do, others argue that it will make no difference, it will prolong the current economic hardship. Trust TV correspondent Idris Jibril brings us his view.
Following the postponement of the election to March the 18th, some politicians say it is the right move considering the alleged irregularities identified during the just concluded presidential and National Assembly election.
There is no reason for INEC to be failing in terms of logistics operations. That's one. Secondly, there is also issue with the IREF. One of the reasons why I decided to contest for election is because of the confidence I have in the electoral process. I was given so much assurance by INEC and also by the presidency that the election would be free and fair and would not have issues. But then, one of the most important key component of the electoral process is that IREF, and we have seen how it has failed, on the day that is supposed to be optimal.
According to some voters in Kano, The postponement of the gubernatorial election will only add more pressure on the electorate, who would have wanted to finish voting once and for all. I think INEC should have allowed this election to just go ahead, because we want to finish it once and for all. People are suffering. We just want to finish this election so that we know that we are over it. But while the Independent National Electoral Commission say the election is postponed to enable the commission reconfigure VIVA machines, these members of the Transition Monitoring Group in Kano are out on the streets to demand for peaceful election come March the 18th.
We have witnessed what happens during the presidential election. The killings, the destruction of properties are live. So we are anticipating the same thing to happen during the gubernatorial election. Politicians are making arrangements to disrupt the setting and the situation in the election, so that we organize this campaign rally to tell the world that we don't want violation of rules and regulation.
At the moment, the Independent National Electoral Commission in Kano, like in many other parts of the country, have continued to assure voters that the election will be free, fair, credible and violence-free, and that voters should feel free to come out to exercise their civic responsibility on 18th March. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
As the Naira crunch bites harder, traders are now exploring other options to receive payments from their customers. Now, one of the options is to use POS agents who, in turn, charge a fee for the transactions, but pressure on internet infrastructure has increased the rate of failed transactions. Zainab Karai reports.
As the Naira scarcity persists, traders and customers have been forced to resort to POS transactions between buyers and sellers. However, cases of failed online transactions that are caused by traffic and ineffective internet services have made customers reluctant to use e-transfers as a payment option. Though many lauded the cashless policy targets of the Apex Bank, the infrastructure placed to make this possible has been questionable.
One of the customers that came to the shop this morning, I am the one that gave him 100 naira to pay for the space where he parked his car. And he did not buy the goods again because he was trying to make the transaction and it was not going. The one I saw there before yesterday, the one I saw yesterday, even the one that they debited me, and I did not get the money.
I have transferred almost 3 people now that the money did not go. And those people now, if they are customers, they have gone. It will show paid, transaction okay, but money is not in my account. I went to the bank to complain now. They say it's 10 days for me to see my money.
People who do say Gary, say like all this village stuff, they don't listen to you when you talk about transfer. They want to see cash in their hand. You pay, you go.
According to traders in the market, the cashless policy has affected their daily patronage and by implication, their income.
Look at the market now. You cannot see people in the market. Everywhere is just door. People are not entering the market. There's no cash. No cash in the market. No cash to enter market. Somebody buys something, the person cannot go with what he or she has bought. Because without us getting the transfer, we cannot release our goods.
POS will collect 300, 400, 200 for just 1,000 naira. Some of the POS. So how much are we making in a day? Our business is not even moving.
To even withdraw and deposit sometimes is very, very difficult. The network is bad. Most of the bank, you tried more than 3 times, they will debit the person. There's no way you can even, and for them to even get access to the bank, again, at least there's another problem there again.
Though the Supreme Court has ruled that the old 1,000, 500 and 200 naira notes will remain legal tender till December 31st, 2023. Nigerians are yet to get any form of relief as they await the go-ahead from the Central Bank and President Buhari for the full implementation of the Supreme Court's directive. Zainab Karai, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Still staying with the currency, the inception of the cash swap policy, which drastically reduced currency in circulation, point-of-sale operators across the country have increased transaction charges for customers using their service. Some of the operators and customers in Lagos lamented the hardship occasioned by the policy and called on the government to address the situation. The report.
Few days after the 2023 presidential election, specifically on Friday, the 3rd of March, the Supreme Court of Nigeria ruled out that old 1,000 naira note, 500 naira note, along with the earlier reintroduced 200 naira note remain legal tender with the new note until 31st of December 2023. However, despite the Supreme Court order, many banks in the country have refused to dispense cash to their customers, both inside the banking halls and also at the automated teller machine (ATM). To this end, Nigerians seeking to get cash for their daily transaction are left to the mercy of point-of-sale operators (POS) who use this opportunity to increase transaction charges to those who come to them for cash. At Ogba area of Lagos State, some customers said the POS charges are now a case of using money to buy money from instead of paying for transaction. They also said traders are witnessing an all-time low in patronage due to non-acceptance of the old naira note.
If you don't have no money, you can't enter vehicle. And it's for POS now. If I want to use 2,000 naira now, go to POS now. If it has there now, they will say they need to collect 700 naira. 700 naira, 600 naira out of 2,000. So what remain? Nothing remain for you again. So things are hard. So I don't even know what to say. It's very hard. If you want to collect 5,000 naira now, they need to collect 1,500 out of your money, your own money.
Transporters justify their non-acceptance of old note from computers. Others are surprised that banks releasing the old note are refusing to collect them back.
People around us, all these our national union transporter, they are not collecting the money from us. And the filling station also, they reject the money from us. Instead of collecting cash, they are collecting POS to collect money from us. So that is why we don't collect it. And people that are selling market, they reject the money.
The old money, we are not seeing some business. People want to transfer. People don't want to collect the old money back from us, and they ask us to collect it. So that has been the problem. No sales. Because of that, we cannot buy, we cannot sell food. We are hungry.
POS service, people now they are doing it here. He collect all money come. Now nobody collect the money. Some people will say, let me meet all these motor people, whether they will collect it. And they did not collect the money. What do you want us to do? Please, President, all you people, governor or presidents, please, we are begging you. You are the one that is supposed to talk. President, please.
Citizens are of the opinion that President Muhammad Buhari should address the nation on the Supreme Court order on the circulation of the old naira notes of 1,000 naira and 500 naira with the new ones, as many Nigerians, especially the traders and transporters, are waiting for these directives, or that of the CBN governor, in order to accept the old note.
And it's really, really sad, you know, at the rate of suffering that Nigerians are actually going through. But we hope, you know, things get better in time. And with this, we'll take a quick breather. And when we come back, we'll move on to our first discussion.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Treated a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
Welcome back. We now move to that segment where we bring you a first conversation of the day. At least 61 persons are said to have died from the outbreak of diphtheria in Kano State. Salma Suwaid, Kano Diphtheria Case Manager, spoke at a webinar organized by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control with the theme Diphtheria Outbreak in Nigeria, Vaccination Response. Diphtheria is a bacterial infection caused by the Cyanobacterium species that affects the nose, the throat, and sometimes skin of an individual. Some symptoms of diphtheria include fever, running nose, sore throat, cough, red eye, neck swelling, and difficulty in breathing. The Kano State government has confirmed the outbreak of diphtheria in 13 local government areas of the state. As of 20th of January 2023, there has been 100 suspected cases from 13 local government areas recorded. Joining us in the studio is Professor Abdusalami Nasidi, Officer of the Order of the Niger, Chairman, Rich Care Foundation, and former Executive Director, ECOWAS CDC, to discuss the issue around diphtheria outbreak in Nigeria. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
And welcome back again. We were a bit worried at first that you were either going to contend with difficult cash or first casting getting to the office, so we are happy.
Absolutely true.
Yes, that you were able to navigate these two variables that has practically held everybody down in Nigeria, regardless of your status.
Thank you very much.
We're discussing diphtheria. It has claimed a lot of lives in Nigeria, and for a lot of us, the question was, what if diphtheria again? We had just come out from a COVID era where we lost quite a number of our citizens, in addition to all other difficulties that we have been sustaining, and then suddenly from nowhere, we are now seeing a different kind of ailment with a strange name, perhaps, claiming so many lives and now spreading to as much as 13 local government in Kano. Can you help our readers understand what this illness is?
Well, thank you, and thank you again for having me. You've helped me a lot. You've mentioned the symptoms, the signs, and this is just for me to enlighten more about the disease. It's a bacterial infection, caused by a very interesting bacteria that produces toxin. So the bacteria, affects the cells, the body, and also the toxin it produces, also affects the cells of the target organs it's affecting to cause the symptoms. So what is it? It's actually a disease that affects mostly children, and the most affected in areas that are not vaccinated are usually children aged between 2 to 14, but 80% of them will be below 5, and that's why the childhood immunization includes this vaccine that will assist in preventing it. So it's easily preventable if there's a full immunization. The community will never experience diphtheria again. So seeing diphtheria in any community or any country is definitely a sign of vaccination failure. That means there's a problem with the immunization program of that country or that community. And as you might be aware, we have been having problem with getting our children fully immunized. Some due to the behavior of the communities, some because of the civil strifes, wars, and banditries. So the immunization teams can reach some of the communities, and some, also the health sector failure. I mean, we have some blames too. We can take it away. So countries or communities that have 80% immunized children, not even 100%, will never see diphtheria again. So when we started seeing the symptom of diphtheria coming up in some states in the country, it became very worrying. The first was in the 2011, where we had diphtheria reported in Borno State. That is understandable because of the Boko Haram. And but what frightened us that time was that the case fatality rate was very high, 21 point something%. So that shows that there is the outbreak, and we don't have the means to mitigate the impact of that outbreak. So the outbreak affected the community and killed so many children. Can you imagine if 21% out of 100 are dying? In children, Can you imagine a lady giving birth to a child, bringing a family, bring out the child, and it's now about 5, 6, 7 to 8, a beautiful period that families enjoy their children, and this disease comes and take them away. So that means there was vaccination failure in that community in Borno State, and then we didn't have what it takes to treat or prevent the effect of that toxin that kills people. So how does, how is the disease transmitted? That's easy, you mentioned it already. Any child, any place or any carrier of this bacteria, that has symptoms in any community or any family will definitely transmit to another person. So either through body contact or through the body fluid or through the sneezing, droplets and etc. or any of the, if it's a child, the four mites that toys they are using. If another child comes to use it also, they will also get the disease. Okay. So why are we worried that we're having diphtheria now? It's not a new disease. It's not a strange disease. It's a known disease, but strange enough that is coming now, telling us that our immunization program is either not working, or I'm even suspecting, as somebody that is working in this area, that it could be that we have vaccine failure. Maybe the vaccines we are using too is not working now. So there are so many factors we are looking into.
All right, doctor. Now, so far, the infection has actually been confirmed in some states like Kano, Yobe, Lagos, Osun, and Katsina states. Now, what's actually being done to stop it from becoming a pandemic?
Well, pandemic is not possible because pandemic has to affect several countries. Okay. Epidemic is already an epidemic because it has affected so far 9 states in the country, with 5 states confirmed cases, but 9 states are already reporting cases, which is very unfortunate. But the worrying, as you rightly said, if the states with the largest population are affected, you mentioned Kano, you mentioned Lagos, that's very worrying. So we have to quickly, do whatever we can to interrupt the transmission, and how do you do it is to quickly, increase our vaccination of the unreached, and then also to get the drugs and antitoxins you need to treat those who are infected.
So, Prof, from what you're seeing and from the number of people we have already lost and the level at which this is spreading, it does appear that politics has sort of shifted our attentions away from so many important things. But are you seeing adequate and sufficient response from state actors, the governors, the primary healthcare development agency, and all those who should be responsible in stopping this spread on its track?
Well, I'm happy you are expert in language. You use the right language. Is there any adequate response? There is a response, but it's not adequate. And that's why up to today, we have not interrupted the transmission. As I'm talking to you today, new daily cases are seen in hospitals in Kano and these other new states, particularly in Kano. Almost 80 to 85% of all the cases so far in the country are reported from Kano State. So, unfortunately, the political activities and whatever, those who are supposed to take decisions in how to curtail this don't even have time for, what do they call it? But nevertheless, we have to praise the healthcare workers of these states and some of the partners that are working with them, to do the maximum they are doing to reduce the impact of the outbreak, that as compared to the Borno outbreak where you have 21% case fatality rate, here now even still spreading and is bad, but at least we have about 10 to 12% case fatality rate, which means some efforts are yielding results, but not enough. By now, the Commissioner of Health of Kano State officially acknowledged diphtheria outbreak in January 2023. And now we are in March. And it's going, daily cases are still not reducing. So tell me, is the response really effective? It's not very effective. Something has to be done more. That means we need more efforts. And I think I should also say we shouldn't be relying on government all the time. We Kano indigenous we call ourselves concerned citizens. We are working very hard, with all the, our good Samaritans to come together to assist,
When you talk about this assistance,
yes,
is it in terms of drugs? Because my question really in that regards would be, how can the communities, the affected communities themselves, come together and organize themselves to prevent further spread? Especially because these children have to go to school, so you can't necessarily stop them from coming together.
I'm coming to that.
Yes.
You're right. So what I'm saying is, what do we do? You ask for the government first, and I said the government alone can't do it. We have to have this partnership now, like we did with Ebola, we did with COVID. So we are mobilizing. We kind of indigenous that can say, look, this thing is happening. There are days that you need the antitoxin to neutralize the toxins that is killing the children. But there are days the antitoxins are not available. So the ones that government brought is not enough. It finishes in 2-3 days before they bring another one. So we have a problem of availability, affordability. So it's not available because we don't manufacture locally. So it is important for us to start seeing how we can do to manufacture or import. To import, you need money. It's very expensive. And the government and partners are struggling to see how they will bring it. So, what we are doing is we are working with our partners. We have already antitoxins which we develop, our group in Nigeria, against snake venom, against Ebola. So we are working with some partners in India and other places to also start thinking of getting this our own local antitoxin. This outbreak shows how important it is to be self-sufficient in these products. You don't have it, it comes, you see your child dying and the drug is not there. It's very bad and criminal. So that's why we're putting the effort. We're working now with the Minister of Health. He has given us approval. We're working with NAFDAC to see how we can fill the gap. The NCDC have been working effectively on the second question that we are talking. That is working with the communities, doing risk communication and letting them know that this disease is preventable and they can play a key role in this. And let me just tell you something. Among those that have so far been recorded, only 18% were fully immunized. You can imagine how terrible it is. So I went to the wards in the hospital in Kano, and I found almost 60-70% of the cases there are zero immunized. So it's really embarrassing and very terrible. So we keep asking, why is the effectiveness of the immunization program? Is it because there are no vaccines or something? There are vaccines. What's happening? We have to really think of this. And now, what the communities themselves can do is that risk communication. And this is what usually affects immunization. If some of them agree to get their children immunized, then they see that in the community many children are dying from preventable disease. They say, you ask us to bring our children, we brought their immunized. Now they've grown to 2, 3, 5 years, they're dying. So that risk communication, in convincing the community more to say, listen, you can do much. Isolate the children. Make sure that, anytime you see these signs you mentioned, running nose, difficulty to swallow, difficulty in breath, changing voices, those plaques you have been showing, in the throat, and so on and so forth, they should immediately, don't waste time, they take the child to the hospital, because any child that has the disease that is taken to the hospital within the first 3 days, if they give appropriate treatment, could survive. Then secondly, is actually getting the local things that can help to improve the well-being of the infected. That if a child is having sore throat, with this plaques that they are showing us, they can't swallow, they can't drink, eat food, they can't listen, and so on and so forth. There are some traditional, medicines that can help to improve this inhalation and others, etc. There are so many other things that they can take to reduce the pain. Even the Panadol, etc. before coming to the hospital.
Okay, now you've actually talked about, children, a lot, but what about the adults? Is it as fatal on the adults as it is, children?
That is a very interesting question you are asking. What we are seeing now, and what is shocking us, is the fact that, in the last 3 to 4 weeks, the outbreak, as you call it, epidemic is now affecting, there's a shift to the right, as we say. Instead of affecting more children aged between 2 to 5, 6, 7, 8, it's now affecting more children above 14 and entering adult population. And unfortunately, the peak of this outbreak, the fatality rate, those who died, are more among children that are above the age of 11, 12, and 14. So God has a way of protecting this, and the children lower die less. But if any child between 10 to that 14 is infected, the chance that they will die is more. But this strange phenomenon that the disease now is pushing more into the adult population is something that is worrying also. And
Prof, at your level and the places where you have functioned, you'll be privileged to know if we have received any international assistance in this regard. You have clearly said the vaccines are now available, and importing them will cost some money. Have we seen some of our international partners sort of show interest in providing any kind of support to help us contend with this?
Yes, as usual, you know, we have our key partners, especially in all these disease and public health activities. The WHO is active on the field with the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, UNICEF. This is they even prime this is to protect the children, and of course we have now MSF. They are there on ground, and there are so many other partners from the USAID, DFID. But these three are the main partners now on the field: WHO, UNICEF, and MSF. So they are working with the NCDC, the state ministries of health, working very hard to reach out to those communities and increase immunization. But the problem now is we have to change our tactics, because if you are immunizing only the children and that are the target children to be immunized, and then the disease is spreading more into older age, then we have to think of how to change our tactics. The NCDC had a webinar, a very interesting webinar, and they discussed this issue. I'm very sure that they will change the tactics so that we can interrupt the transmission, because so far the bacteria is still spreading.
Okay, so sorry, talking about the bacteria still spreading now, there seems to be a new twist, because experts have actually said that they found a manifestation of diphtheria in female genitalia. I don't know what's that all about. If you could enlighten us on that.
Yeah, there are two types of the diphtheria.
Okay.
So, and I'm happy the one that is called the classical one is the one that has all those symptoms, say running nose, this, and difficulty in breathing, difficulty in etc., and so on and so forth. So that one ends up actually in serious complications. It will end up targeting 3 organs of the body. This classical one to target the kidney, target the heart, and target the brain, the nervous system. And some of those who die twitching at times, they have nervous problem. So if it is the kidney that is affected, it really shuts down the kidney. It's a toxin. So it's a terrible dissonance and so forth. So, and you can't believe it, some of them die of heart attack, because the toxin affects the blood cycle, the heart system, the platelets, and so on and so forth. So what was this thing you said again?
Okay, the manifestation,
manifestation of.
They're talking about the 2 types.
Yeah. So this is the classical one that I've talked about. Then the cutaneous one, I mean the one that is the skin one, it comes with rashes and symptoms and this and affects especially female. If there are rashes and it goes to the private part, people will think it's STD and all this. But that cutaneous one affects mostly the skins, the cells of the mouth and the nose, and so on and so forth. So if it goes into the genitals, it will manifest as if it is, an
STD.
An STD, and so on and so forth. So it is right. Some scientists are saying it can be spread sexually and all this in etc. So, but we think it is because it affects the skin, all those membranes, and if it goes to the genitalia, it will present as if it's an STD.
You said something that stuck with me somewhere in the course of your explanation, which was about vaccine security. When the Ebola happened, we saw when the COVID-19 happened, because it was a pandemic, we saw the way the world reacted, especially at some point when it became clear that some drugs could be effective against this. Countries started preventing exports of those drugs, and it felt like people who didn't have capacity to do anything were left to their fate. Thankfully, maybe I'm not sure whether it's the record or we didn't suffer as much casualty as we have seen in places like China and Italy, or even the United States. How important is it that we begin to rethink our entire health architecture? At some point, I remember 1 or 2 companies in Nigeria has made efforts to get approval to become vaccine manufacturers in this country. Is that conversation still on the table? Have we just seasoned it because we are out of that pandemic in a way and waiting for the next disaster to happen before we start eating? What do we need to do, considering a population with a size like ours, and that we are sitting in a sub-region where most of our neighbors are really very poor, and a simple outbreak from that place could permeate our borders and become a problem for us? What do we need to do to get ready for times like this?
Actually, I'm happy that the last part of your question is one that even puts more responsibility on our head. That most of our neighbors are poorer and they're looking up to us. They're actually looking up to us to see if we can provide this solution. We had vaccine manufacturing before, it crashed, and that's some topic for the next another time. Then when the COVID was coming, we had series of interviews between the experts, Tomori, myself, others from the Ministry of Health, one of the questions I raised was we should quickly start making efforts to have our own vaccine. We should not rely on donor vaccine when they will donate to you. And some people say, no, the donors, they will give us, they will bring the vaccine. And I say, you can't rely on them, because they will not, if the disease spreads and becomes too dangerous, they won't release that vaccine for you if their own taxpayers are not fully immunized. And that is exactly what happened. So it just brought to the fact that, we have no option but, as a country with large population, to start thinking of self-sufficiency. And that is why, we have been on it for the past 20-25 years. How Nigeria should start vaccine manufacturing. There's a company established as public-private partnership, we call the Bio Vaccines, etc. And, efforts have been made to see how it will take off. It will go, and then there's a delay, as usual in Nigeria, some policy, somersault, all sorts of things have been affecting that, our initiative and effort to get vaccine manufacturing started. Now, we are talking of vaccine manufacturing. Vaccine manufacturing was much easier before. Now it has become so complicated. It's very expensive now, venture. But we have no option, we have to do it, whether we like it or not. But producing these antitoxins, like snake bite, if I tell you the states in Nigeria with big problem of snake bite, you'll be shocked. Where, at times, you go to those areas, you are talking of big public health problems like HIV, AIDS, your TB. When you finish, they will tell you, please, thank you for your big grammar. But our major problem here is snake bite. It happened to me in Kaltungo, it happened to me in other states, and so on and so forth. So if we hadn't risked our lives to challenge the snakes, grab them, get them, and produce the antivenom, we wouldn't have had our own antivenom. We would be relying, and people will be just dying from these preventable deaths.
Well, thank you so much, Professor. But this is where we actually wrap up this discussion. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio to enlighten us about diphtheria. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, so that was Professor Abdusalami Nasidi, Officer of the Order of the Niger, Chairman, Reach Care Foundation, and former Executive Director, ECOWAS CDC, with us here in the studio. And we'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll move on to the next discussion.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. We have decided to lighten up your morning today with our magnificent sport correspondent, Ajeshafe, who is in the studio. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
That was magnificent. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Quite a number of things. We will try to see what we can do with a few minutes left. Starting from yesterday, Man United came back from a trumping at the weekend by my beloved Liverpool. Sorry, I have to be partial in the way I communicate that. I have not breathed easy in the newsroom for a while because of Manchester United and Chelsea fans. Now I have some bragging rights. But they returned, they shoved off that humiliating defeat, and yesterday bounced back to a 4-1 victory. And there are quite a number of things happening with that, and leading into today where the Flying Eagles would also be having an engagement. Ajeshafe would run us through these developments and what to watch out for. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be talking about Rivers United first, because that's our own. If you don't talk about it, no one else.
Absolutely.
So Rivers United did well yesterday. They also play on Wednesday. That match was actually pushed forward to yesterday because of the team that faced them, Motema Pembe of DR Congo. And in that match, they were able to win 3-1. A particular player, Paul Aqua from Ghana, showed how good he is. He was able to score a hat-trick for Rivers United. And congrats to Rivers United, because right now they are topping their group, 9 points from 4 matches. Being followed by ASEC Mimosas, and right now Rivers are really edging closer to get to quarterfinals. Congrats to them, despite that particular delay from playing on Wednesday to on Thursday. They still show class by showing that yes, they are one of the teams to beat in this CAF Confederation, the second stanza of CAF Interclub competition. Aside that, you mentioned Manchester United. Well, good one. At least Man United fans can now do like this wherever they are.
After that defeat,
yeah, that 7-0 loss to Liverpool was a big one, a big slap. Looking at the rivalry between the two clubs. But this particular match yesterday against Manchester and against Real Betis, at least gave them that little, let me call it little bragging right off. So they won that game 4-1. At least Jose Perez, a former player of Newcastle, came on to at least help Newcastle, Real Betis to pull over, but it was not good enough. As the man that was blamed for last weekend, I love the fact that he came back live in this one, talking about Bruno Fernandes. That's their captain. He was able to be on scorer sheet there. You have Marcus Rashford, you have Anthony rather. All of them doing well in this particular game, for the fact that they didn't allow that loss against Liverpool to deter them from going forward about this Europa Cup. That's a clap for me, for Manchester United. The girls are what they needed to boost themselves ahead of what will be happening in the weekend. And now they got that win. That's the first leg. So the second leg now, at least they put one leg there. They are waiting for the second leg. Congrats to them. And from that particular one, let's talk about our own Flying Eagles. They will also be playing today. Looking at what they've done so far in this tournament, under 20 AFCON, well, I won't give them too much pass mark. Let me say I will rate them 50% for the fact that a lot of people were actually placed on them for what they would do. But so far they managed, they crawl, they ran, they race, and eventually qualify for the World Cup. That's a good one for them. They were able to do that. But for the event proper, they couldn't get the coveted final place that they were running for. So they also fight for third place now. Between them and Tunisia. Tunisia lost against Senegal 3-0. And we lost against Gambia 1-0. Gambia, Senegal will be facing themselves in the final. That will be on Saturday. But for today, is a battle to finish, because right now Tunisia are talking tough that they will make sure they dislodge Nigeria. We've won this third place 3 times. We are going for the 4th time.
We've won this trophy 7 times. If we are qualified for final, we should have been in a race for the 8th time. But for the 3rd place, this is our 4th time we are running for. And let's see if our boys will put behind themselves all those mistakes they made, all the matches they played in the groups and also against Gambia, and at least prepare themselves towards winning this trophy to help them to at least get happy about this tournament, qualifying for the World Cup and also making the 3rd place for the bronze. And maybe finally, let's talk about Kwara Falcons. That's basketball. Kwara Falcons right now, as we speak, they are in Senegal, precisely in Dakar, the capital of Senegal. Why are they there? They are there because they represent Nigeria in that particular competition called African Basketball League, BAL. It's like an organized league where all the top clubs of each country comes together to play as African continent, and now being supported by NBA and all that. So the good thing is that Kwara Falcons, they qualify from Nigeria. They're representing the green, white, green color. They'll be fighting against 3 other clubs: REG of Rwanda, AS Douanes of Senegal, that's the home team now, and they have another big team to fight against, that's US Monastir of Tunisia. A big one for Kwara Falcons, but for the fact that they were able to qualify from Nigeria, we shouldn't underrate them. They can actually surprise all the teams they've been talking. Kwara Falcons seems to be very quiet. They are not talking. Other teams have been talking. They will beat Kwara. I still don't know why attention is on that Kwara Falcons. Maybe because they felt these are greenhorn, they are just coming for this competition, but they could be shocked that Falcons actually do well in this competition.
Interesting updates there from Ajay Shafe. He has taken us, has given us wonderful rundown, be it football, basketball, intercontinental, local leagues, and of course the Champions League. Whatever your interests are in sport this morning, I'm sure he has brushed off on something that is of interest to you. We would be throwing our supports behind the Flying Eagles today. It's 3rd place, but it's still something. And like you said, it will do their career a great deal of good. Remember that the future Super Eagles would possibly be coming from this age group competition. This is the much we can bring for you at this time. Thank you very much for sneaking in and providing us this different narrative from everything that is happening around us, whether it's cash, scarcity of cash, or scarcity or diphtheria outbreak. There is something that is outbreak. There is a different outbreak from everything we have, and that's the much we can bring you this morning. If you have missed out on anything, please do well to engage our social media handles on Facebook and YouTube, Instagram, to catch up on all the interesting programs that we have brought to you this morning. We will continue to be there, but for this section is the much we can bring right now. I am Sunday Michael Ogu. Thanks for staying with us.
And I'm Dashan Hussein Osman. Have a wonderful weekend.